right?
No, not really. I always understood that as well. It's just how much,
Okay,
you know, the.
Okay, I'd like to call this committee of the whole meeting to order, please. An adoption of tonight's agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Councillor Barkwell, secondary. Councillor Carlson, all in favor? And opposed? Thank you. It's carried. CAO.
just going to do a brief introduction before handing it over to Lori and Renee. So tonight is the, as you know, permissive tax exemptions. I think that most of the council has received packages, or I know council has received packages with a lot of information. This is this council's first time of reviewing permissive tax exemptions. It's generally a fairly large topic. As I've said before in the past, permissive tax exemptions should be viewed in a very similar manner as grants, really. That and in light of how they impact the tax levy. So it's kind of unfortunate with the timing that BC Assessment has permissive tax exemptions bylaw due on October 31st. So you always consider tax exemptions outside of budgeting period of time. But so you just need to keep that in mind, that there is a direct correlation between your tax levy and a grant and aid. I mean, in a permissive tax exemption. It's a direct correlation, and it's important to remember that. Some question might come up tonight about best practices, on what is the best practice, or what do other municipalities do. And unfortunately for permissive tax exemptions, there isn't really best practices out there. It's sort of an emerging area. I think for many years, there weren't new permissive tax exemption applications coming along, and it was just always the same standard ones, and then there was a few new ones in any municipality, new ones, and then suddenly that correlation was made that, geez, if you give these 15, then, and it totals whatever, $100,000, that takes it away from potentially another service. So you have to keep in mind the weighing of the value of those services versus other values. So I think that you'll see now that there's far more attention, and that council needs to understand that you may not be able to make all the changes that you want to make. If we start going through this and you don't fully understand the whole picture, or if you think things can be done differently, you can do a bylaw, exemption bylaws for just the 1 year, and give the organizations notice that you're going to be reviewing them for a next year or for ongoing years. So it's up to you on how much change, if there's change that you're thinking you might want to do. And lastly, as far as the process, Lori and Renee are going to go through all of them. I think the best idea is to go, you don't yet have the applications. They're going to explain that and make sure you have access to them. But we're going to go through all the organizations. But a permissive tax exemption process can be as technical or non-technical as council feels comfortable for. And some permissive tax exemptions fit. Some councils will just say, we've got our strategic plan in front of us, and that's what our basis of making our decisions on permissive tax exemptions. Some might just say, these are the organizations we feel as a council need assistance financially, or that we want in our community. The rationale is wide, and there's no rights and wrongs. So that will come up in our discussion on as we bring forward the different applications as we have. But there, again, I think what I want to say is that really we can provide as much information we have on what other municipalities do, but you'll find that it is all over the map. So with that, I'll turn it over and just jump in when there's something else to add.
Okay, great, thank you. So tonight, as we all know, the topic is permissive tax exemptions, and the information that council is considering is exemptions for the 2016 year, taxation year. The CAO did mention the applications briefly in her introduction. They all should now be in your Dropbox. So the applications that we received for the current year's request, some of them are renewals, and you'll find that there is a short form there. So if there's any information beyond what is in that renewal application that you would like to see, just let Renee or I know, and we have a complete application from a previous year that will include more information that you may be looking for. So just to get started then in the, maybe just a brief outline of how we sort of thought tonight might go. We'll talk a bit about the report and some changes in process that we'd like you to consider, and then break the review of the organizations into two parts. So the first one would be the churches, places of worship, and the private schools. And then the second part being the other organizations that don't fit that first category. And the reason for that is that the first category has a statutory piece to the exemptions. So they receive an exemption from property taxes that's granted to them by the province, and council has no discretion over that amount. And the ones that would like to have more of their property exempted are what you see on the list before you to consider this evening. So we've got those two groups. Further information is available in your Dropbox with the applications. And we're just going to start off, I think, by reviewing process a little bit. So I'll remind council that a little bit of background and discussion on the authority that you have to grant a permissive tax exemption is that you can do that in any manner you see fit, using a process that is not discriminatory and does not infringe upon any rights such as freedom of religion or equality. So as Linda stated, you know, there's many different approaches. There's no right or wrong. There's no best practice, as long as the decision-making comes within those parameters of not being discriminatory or infringing upon rights. So with that in mind, we'll talk then about process. So we have, in the past here in Summerland, had just an annual process each year where everyone filled out an application form and everything was up for review. What we're suggesting for the next few years is that that first group, which are the places of worship and the private schools, churches, they have an extended period that's not looked at every year. And if council is interested in going forward with that idea, we would have the applications coincide, the full year application, complete application, a more thorough review coincide with the year after an election for municipal councils. So because this bylaw has to be adopted by October 31st, it would be impossible to have an incoming council deal with it in time to put it into place. So the suggestion in the report is that you would consider the organizations with a thorough review, not the year you're elected, but the next year, and then those exemptions would remain in place for 4 years for that group. So that's the churches and private schools, places of worship. The other organizations, we're still suggesting an annual review, but again, that can be at council's discretion. If you wanted to consider having a longer cycle to review those applications, you could suggest that we have that same 4-year cycle in place, where at the first year organizations make a application and they're given then some certainty about what level of support they're going to receive. Could be 1 year, could be 4 years. It really can be whatever council thinks would work best for providing support to the organizations in the community. So that's a bit of detail for you to think on, and we'll come back to it after we've done some review of the organizations and the properties that are in the first group, which are the places of worship, private schools, and hospitals. We don't have any hospitals on our list, and we're just having a little technical difficulty here in getting the pictures on the screen.
Just to add to that, a decision on whether or not you're gonna do it for a multi-year period of time.
Well, there's no set amount. I'm not sure we want to vote.
Richard?
The decision on a bylaw doesn't need to be made until the end. Like, it's good information to
Yes.
know that that's your choice, but after we've reviewed all the applications and council can determine how comfortable they are with it, you can determine if it would be a good idea to do it a multi-year. You don't need to decide that yet.
Yeah, so really the format and process for tonight is food for thought. Lots of review, lots of opportunity to ask questions, and coming back either at the end of the meeting if we've covered everything to your satisfaction and you're ready to make recommendations to have a bylaw come forward, or if we have to meet again to get to that point, yeah, we're just going to take it as it comes and
We had quite a lengthy conversation today, and we really think that we'll probably need to have one more meeting before preparing the bylaw. We need to have the bylaw ready for the end of October, but we do think that the amount of information that's coming your way tonight, and we anticipate you may have some questions that we may need to go back and get some more data on. So it may be that we'll have one more session.
all right, so we've got the first
excuse me.
organization.
CFO, just 1 second, please.
Yes.
Counselor Booth?
Thank you. So when you say it has to be ready by the end of October, does that mean all the readings and passed by the end of, okay, thanks.
Yeah, before October, on or before October 31st, yes. So at this point, I'm going to turn over the microphone to Renee to walk you through the properties that each organization has asked be granted an exemption. It's unfortunate it's not really fitting the screen. Is there
Before we go
anything-
there, can we just check and make sure there's clarity from all of council on what is statutorily exempt for a church? Is there still question on what we mean by that and what part?
If I may. Because I did have this question, I did send it to Renee. Because some of them say, it says, please explain the PTA request for that portion of land and buildings not receiving the general statutory exemption. So my understanding is the general statutory exemption, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what is provided by the province, and then the municipality has an option to do the permissive tax exemption on a further portion of the lands.
Yes, that's correct. Renee, could you please advance to that one we looked at? There's an example here that from one of our applicants that makes it fairly easy to see. So in this property, if we can make it a little smaller here.
And generally, it's the schools and the places of worship and the hospitals that have this provincial tax exemption.
The statutory, yes, this category that we're speaking about right now. So on this property, you can see there is a building and there is a parking lot, and that really encompasses the majority of this property. And the assessed value, I'm having trouble seeing it, Renee, sorry.
What's the name on the one we're looking at?
Okanagan Hindu Society.
It's 497,900.
Is the total assessed value, and then the the statutory exemption,
239,200?
right? So you can see that about half of the property is getting a statutory exemption, and the remainder would be allowable for permissive exemption. The property really isn't bigger than the place of worship and the parking lot, but the statutory exemption is not for the entire piece of property. So the footprint, the area around the building, does not include the entire piece of property. So it is the building and the footprint that the province exempts, and then councils decide the level of exemption for the remainder. So that could be 100% exemption, it could be a lower percentage exemption, it could be a fixed dollar amount of support that you want to give this organization, any combination of that. Does that fully explain that statutory and permissive piece for everyone?
Question, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, yes.
So the exemption is on the building for the province. I'm just gonna call it the province. It's a general exemption. And then we have a portion that we can do in whatever manner we decide to do it on the remainder of that property.
It's not just the building, it's the building and the footprint that it sits on. So there is a bit of, there'll be the land value that the building sits on and a small amount of land surrounding it.
I understand that. I'm just
Okay.
gonna call it the building.
Okay,
It's an
fair enough.
envelope.
Yes.
It's an envelope. It's a
Yes.
building envelope, yes, it has a footprint.
Yes.
It has a building, a structure, and it has an envelope. So, but that's the portion that's exempted by the province, and there are other lands that we can exempt in whatever portion we decide to, and however we decide to apply it.
Yes.
As long as it's fair.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I guess my understanding of this is that your places of worship essentially are fully exempt if you're looking at, you've got the statutory and the permissive portion. So the only way you would have less, or not exempt all of it, is if it was considered that part of the parking area and the buildings were not being used for the specific purpose as a place of worship.
That's correct. So if a religious organization, so in Summerland, we have that example with the Summerland Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. They own 2 different sites.
Yeah.
And the property only with the place of worship on it is actually eligible for any permissive or statutory exemptions. So where they're holding a piece of vacant land in another location because they're going to do a future building there, that second piece of property is not eligible.
Right.
But you will find as we review these maps that sometimes there are 2 separate pieces of property, so 2 folios, 2 pieces of property that attract taxation that are side by side and are used fully by the place of worship. So in this case, the second piece, 9514 on the right, does not have a building on it, but it is used for parking. Sometimes you will see as we go through them, just vacant land that has nothing improved on it. And it is part of the site and part of the application for the permissive exemption. So that is definitely at the discretion of the council whether you wish to retain the status of 100% exemption on everything these organizations own, or if you wish to have the property that's not actively used in the activity of the organization, so as a place of worship, not receiving a full exemption. And as we go through them on this first review, you'll see how the properties
Excuse me.
end up in those different situations. So Renee, maybe we'll just go back to the beginning and I'll turn it over to you, Dan.
Can you tell us which page you're on when you do that, please?
I don't believe the page is
Yes, yeah, they're there.
Start on 13. 13? So it's the first page of the actual visual pictures of the
Yep,
properties.
okay.
So the first one we'll look at is the Christian and Missionary Alliance in Canada. The property's located at 14812 and 14820 on Victoria Road North. Now there's two different tax rolls for this property. You can see the larger component, so it's 2347, that folio, is the main area that they use. Now this one has a class 1 on it, which is residential, and residential is not eligible for permissive tax exemptions. So you can see this small area on the front of the property, and this is a house that is rented out. And so they're not requesting an exemption on that portion of the property, we're just showing it. So that's the class 1 at 137.7, that's the valuation, the assessment of it. And the rest of the property is class 8. So it's 1.172, 400 for the total assessment. 621,400 is a statutory exemption, so that's the portion granted by the province. That would be this building area with a small footprint around it. And then the permissive that they're applying for, 100% of the remainder of the land in class 8, is the remainder of the area. And you can see on this property, there's a large area behind the church that currently isn't used for any specific purposes. So it's an open lot, mostly just, it's a field basically, not actively used. Now the congregation also owns a second folio right adjacent to it. There used to be a house on this property, but it has been demolished, and so it's vacant, empty area. They do use it for additional parking if they require it, if there's a large gathering at the congregation, but normally it would just remain empty. So that one is assessed at $299,000. There's no general exemption on here because there's nothing on the land. And so they're requesting $299, 100% exemption on that parcel as well. Is there any questions about this property?
Yes, excuse me, the portion that's behind the church,
Yep.
that's green there,
Yep,
so that's not being used yet, it's part of that folio.
correct.
Are they asking for exemption of that piece as well?
Yes, and historically, they have been given 100% on the full folio, and that's what we're looking at is all
Yeah.
the space used
Yeah.
and everything. So.
I think if it's our concern to kind of meet criteria, the only thing that bothers me about, you know, being hard and fast with the criteria, if there's been a history of exemption, is where do we go from here in terms of, because this would be perhaps a significant hit for the congregation. So, you know, if we were to incline to modify the exemption, then it would have to be done over a period of time, but at the same time, I'd want to know to what extent that exemption would apply to that piece of, that portion of the property.
So
And
certainly
then-
at our next meeting, we
Yeah.
could prepare that level of detail of information. And I think our CAO alluded to perhaps making changes over time to
Yeah.
give these organizations some notice that a change is coming. So that's something that we could also consider, is that, you know, not making the change this year, but putting them on notice that it's coming for the next year, or a phase-in of the change in the current year with more to come in the next year. Those are certainly all options that council can consider.
When we're looking at these places of worship, it's really, if there was any significant change that was gonna be done, you know, in the current year, it would really be when it becomes obvious that there's properties that are being held for profit purposes, for investment purposes, where it had
Okay.
nothing to do with the operations of their,
Okay.
place of worship, but it was, you know, some of them become obvious that it's very much a, not.
Well, that's a key distinction for me. Yeah.
Right.
Counselor Trainer.
I just wanted to know why that little, the piece of property that's in the top right,
This one here?
why does that one qualify if they don't have a building on it?
For
Uh,
parking.
You don't have to.
You don't have to have a.
You have to, you don't have, you can just have land, to qualify for the permissive. For the
Okay.
general, it has to be the building with the footprint around it.
Okay.
So there's no general exemption on that smaller
Yeah.
parcel, but they do qualify because they're a nonprofit and it's.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Just a comment.
Yeah,
The province has a whole lot easier decision to make than we do.
yeah, they do.
Absolutely.
They do, yes, of course. You're quite right. CFO?
So we're
Or-
on to the next property if there are no
Okay,
further
yep.
questions.
Can I just ask a
Counselor
question?
Boot, yes.
This maybe has something that might be an indicator too on how they plan to use the property in the future. And, well, I guess I should go back a little bit. How are these properties zoned? What's the zoning for a church? Is it institutional or does it vary?
It was typically institutional.
Institutional? Okay, so that they would require a change to zoning, right? If they were planning on making a profit off of the extra land?
Not necessarily if they were going to do a development, if they were going
Right.
to develop, it was just a holding property. In
Right.
previous municipalities that I've been in, the properties were such that the local church didn't even get the money. They were holding companies, holding properties, and they were sent actually to the state somewhere. So they were very
got it.
specifically just investment properties.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next.
So the next one that we'll look at is the South Okanagan Montessori School Society. This one's a bit difficult to see just in terms of the picture, but it's one folio, and it is all classed as Class 6. So there's a $543,000 statutory exemption, so a large portion of it, and then they're requesting $133,000 for a permissive tax exemption.
So I might just give a little explanation on the classes. So Class 8, which we saw on the previous property, is for recreation and not-for-profit. So churches fall into that category. And the Class 6, which this property has, we often call it business, but really it's business and other. So any property that doesn't fit in the definition of the properties in any of the other classes ends up in Class 6. So in this case, a private school, is a Class 6 property.
Okay, not much additional to say about this one. The parcel of land has the school facility on it. There's an adjacent parking lot, and then there's a playground area. So not much open space in relation to the first one we looked at, because it is all used for playground purposes.
Counselor Carlson?
While we're talking about schools, just a question, if a church is given statutory exemption, do they also pay the school tax and all of the other taxes? So if we give permissive, they still have to pay the school tax?
No,
Is that
the granting of the permissive, the statutory exemptions exempts them from all taxes, and the granting of the permissive also exempts them from all taxes, yes. So the dollars that we've presented in the report are District of Summerland dollars. But depending on the tax requisition from the regional district, from the province, the other taxing agencies, the money becomes 2 or 3 times the amount, depending on the class. Yes. So it's a much greater benefit for them.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to ask one thing of the CFO or Renee. As we hit each one of these, when we talk about the permissive exemption limit, can you tell us, without jumping to the tables back and forth, have they been granted the full permissive in the past?
Okay, for sure.
So with the,
Make it bigger?
with the Montessori school, was it?
So with the first one we looked at was the Christian and Missionary
Yep.
Alliance, and it was 100%.
Okay,
In the previous year, and so was the school society. And actually,
Okay.
if I can just make a general note about any of the places of worship, they all received 100% of their requests.
Okay.
In
That's-
previous years.
that's what I was sort of wondering, yeah, thank you.
The other organizations,
Very.
we will address, they're a bit
Okay.
different, but all of the places of worship did receive 100%.
Okay, thanks.
And no new applications on places
Correct,
of
in
work.
that
That's my other
category.
question, thank you.
Any further questions about the school?
No, that's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Okay, we're on to, the next one is Okanagan Hindu Society?
The next one is the Hindu Society.
Yeah.
That's the one that Lori had addressed
Yep.
initially. Sorry about the computer problems, but you all have it in front of you. This one was granted 100%, as I mentioned. So it's a Class 8 property with an assessed value of $497,900. $239,200 falls under the statutory exemption, and they are requesting PTE for the remainder, so $258,700. It includes the society building that you can see with the surrounding parking lot, and that's basically everything on that parcel of land. Any questions about that one?
Are you stating what the permissive tax exemption was each year, like the dollar value for each one last year, or,
Well, she said it was 100%.
100%.
no, but the
The dollar value?
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah, I understand.
is it on that chart? Like, is it, could it be easy to state to council just for each one, the value of the permissive tax exemption?
Certainly, just the district value, if you want,
No,
also total.
no.
Just give the, so we're, the CFO just asked if we're gonna start telling you what the permissive tax exemption value was, we're going to give you the value of the municipal taxes only. So, of course, it's a bigger number when you add school taxes and that, but just consistent through all of them, it'll just be the municipal portion of the taxes, which were exempted.
So
So-
for the first organization, the Christian and Missionary Alliance, the municipal portion is $5,234. For the South Okanagan Montessori School, the municipal portion is $1,153, and the Okanagan Hindu Society, the exemption is $1,593.
We have these numbers in the table. What I thought that the CAO was talking about was of the dollars, the tax dollars, how much of it was statutory and how much of it was permissive. So if we gave no permissive,
Sorry, we don't have information, any numbers in here that are related to the statutory exemption because you have no discretion over that.
So this is the entire permissive
Permissive,
portion. I
yes.
see. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to state it at the time that we were looking at the parcel, so
I
you
thought
do
that
have
was a
that information.
combination of the
Yeah.
two.
No,
Would it be this one?
Counselor Trainer?
So if we're allowed to give 100% of the permissive, that basically means that we are not collecting school tax or regional district tax. So how does that affect the regional district? Like,
same thing for everybody that collects taxes. The bottom line is you have to collect, say, $1 million, depending on say you need to collect $1 million. So if you've got 80 properties, those are silly numbers, but you've got 80 numbers to make up that $1 million, or you have 75 properties to make up that $1 million.
Oh, I
Each
see.
individual property pays a little bit more. The same with the regional district. All Summerland, only Summerland taxpayers, not the rest of the regional district taxpayers. All Summerland taxpayers pay just a
so
little
they
bit
still
more.
get the same amount that they require?
They still get the bottom
So
line the same.
essentially it's picked up by
Everybody else.
Okay, thanks.
Counselor Peak?
When I look at option 2, which is the portion for the municipal portion, what is the percentage on this one? So the option one was 1.7%.
Are we talking about
What's
the
option
options?
2?
Yeah, so option 2 is a little difficult to give the percentage. We can base it on what the 2015 taxes are, but at this point in time, we don't know for 2016 what council might consider for a tax increase or what all the assessments are going to come
So
in
you
at,
can't-
right?
You can't pin it down yet.
Not
Okay,
exactly,
that's fine.
but we can say that it is a higher request than the 2015 amount.
Okay, so-
And using the 2015 as the calculation, it comes to 1.86%.
Thank you, which is $129,049.
Yes.
1.86.
Yeah. And if we factored in the 3% tax increase, then it brings it down to 1.8%. But that's the closest we can do.
That's great,
in
thank
terms
you.
of numbers right now.
Okay.
The next parcel of land is the Summerland Pentecostal Church. It has an assessed Class 8 value of $849,900 total. $498,800 is a statutory exemption on that property, and they're requesting 100% permissive tax exemption for the remainder of the $351,100. And they received 100% exemption last year, and this year their PTE value, if you granted the same, is worth $2,162.04. The property has the building and the parking lot with some open area at the back of the property. You can see at the bottom of the screen there. Any questions about that property?
No. That one again is strictly parking lot and building. There's really
Correct,
nothing
yeah.
more.
Next, we have the Roman Catholic Bishop of Nelson Church of the Holy Child. Again, one parcel of land, classed as Class 8. The assessed value is a total of $1,172,400. They receive a statutory exemption valued at $621,400, and the permissive 100% difference that they are requesting is $551,000. They received 100% exemption last year, and the value of that would be $4,894.30. This one has no extra area. You can see that it's just the building with parking lots surrounding it.
So, if I could, sorry, just saying that the amount of dollar exemption that they get, that you're quoting at the end,
Yeah.
is essentially if the calculation was done exactly as it was done the previous year.
If 100% exemption was given for everything that wasn't granted under the statutory exemption.
It was last year's, that's just last year's value. No?
That's all we have.
That's
Yeah.
what, it's
Yeah.
last
We
year,
don't
yeah.
have
I guess
26.
what I'm driving at is I didn't think we were gonna be getting into option 1 through 4 at this
No.
point.
No.
No.
Because essentially, the values you're quoting right now are based on the calculation as it was done in previous years.
Correct.
So we are not, at this point in time, considering any of the options which would express perhaps a difference in what that exemption might be for this coming year.
We're just providing the value.
We're just providing the basic value without any consideration of any option changes in how we do things.
Yes.
Correct? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Any questions on this property?
Nope. Yes. We're good?
Next, we have St. John's Lutheran Church. Again, it's one folio, and it's a Class 8 property valued at an assessed value of $960,300, sorry. Statutory exemption on that property is $520,600, and the remainder that they're requesting 100% exemption for is valued at $439,700. So you can see that there's the church building with the surrounding parking lot, but there's also a large field area in the upper portion of the screen. If you look to the left-hand side, The little plots that you see there is actually a community garden. So they have, I believe, 40% of the field area is apportioned for community garden. That's what they've developed so far. And they have about 20 families that currently utilize that space. They received 100% of the exemption in the prior year, and the value of that was $2,707.63.
So is their intention to gradually eat up the rest of that property the way they have right now? Or is that-
Yes, it's their hope, this is directly from his email, and it is their hope to plan to expand the area as it grows. So as they have more families that are interested in using the area, then they hope to move across to the other side. And they do currently use the remainder of the area for larger functions, games, recreation, summer camp, that type of
Okay,
thing.
okay, thank you. Any questions from anybody? No, I guess we're good.
This is St. Stephen Anglican Church. Again, it has one large folio. There is a class 1, which is residential property on this property. They aren't requesting an exemption on it, but we're just providing the information. It's the former rectory building, and it's, I know this doesn't show, but the orange colored roof on the left-hand side, that's the building. And it was the former rectory, and they do rent it out, but again, a PTE isn't requested on that parcel. So it is requested on the remainder. The Class 8 zoning is a total of $1,637,400. And under statutory exemption, they receive $1,519,000. So there's only $118,400 remaining, and they're requesting a full permissive tax exemption on there. And the value of that at 100% approval last year was $729.10.
With a property that size, is it because the building has been refurbished and parts of it are heritage and really unique and central to downtown that the value is so high? Any ideas?
So BC Assessment really are the experts on determining those values, and we certainly could request some information from them if you're interested in knowing more, but we really don't have details about how they determine that.
It just seems like it's a very large parcel, and the permissive portion is quite small compared to the statutory, and I just wonder.
Do we know how much of the yard is in class 1? I was thinking the exact question, this one is an anomaly, unless a large part of the land, on the class 1, does it tell you how much improvements there are on the chart?
We don't have it broken down here. The
Oh, okay.
total value of the Class 1 assessment is $284,000.
Oh, so not significant then.
So not significant. I'm thinking it's just the building with a small footprint.
I think it would be because it's all straight up and down behind, once you get across the creek. So there's
Yeah.
a little bit of lawn and then the creek and.
That's what I was gonna ask, is this photo deceiving? Is that
Yes.
actually a steep cliff?
Yeah, it's-
Okay, that's why I
It's
thought
all,
as big as that.
it's all bedrock coming down to the creek.
Right. Okay.
Would you like additional?
No, that's all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's all about the location.
Yeah.
Anything further on this one? This is the Summerland Baptist Church. So they have one tax roll, and it's a Class 8 property, valued at a total of $2,708,500. Their statutory exemption is a large portion at $2,403,000, and that leaves $305,500 available for permissive if you choose to do 100%. The value of that last year was $1,881.24, and this is a smaller area with just the building and surrounding parking lot.
So, the fact that they own other properties that may be rental properties or whatever, they're just under normal property tax situation, they're not listed as properties owned by the church?
They may be owned by the church, but they're not included in this folio.
Yeah,
They haven't made application for it.
And there's no
because-
application.
okay, that's good, thank you.
Are they 100, were they 100% in 2015?
Yes, all the places
All
of
of them were,
worship were
okay.
100%. This is the trustees of the Summerland Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. This is one that Lori had made reference to earlier, where they have 2 tax rolls. So you can see the one on the left is where their building is with some parking lot, and the full parcel on the right is entirely parking lot. So with the first one, zoned entirely Class 8, total assessed value of $413,500. They do receive a statutory exemption because there is a building on it, valued at $213,200, and they're requesting 100% permissive tax exemption for the remainder, valued at $200,300. And then adjacent to it, like I mentioned, is the parking lot. No statutory exemption on that property, and the assessed value is $262,700. So they're requesting 100% on that property as well. And last year, they did receive 100% on both folios at a total value of $2,851.11. Any questions?
Thank you.
Summerland United Church is the next one. This is one folio, but it's just split into different lots. Total assessed value of the property is $1,197,200. Statutory is a large portion at $1,044,000, and they're requesting 100% for the remainder of $153,200. So they have the building, second building that's used for the food bank. So this is the property actually located just across the street that you probably see a lot, and a small surrounding parking lot. And they received a value of $943.39 last year for 100% tax exemption. Any questions?
Any questions, anybody? These are all the places of worship then? Good.
So that
What-
was the fund.
One of the things I wanted to note, I don't think it was said, but I might have missed it when it was when the topic was being introduced. When you're looking at the options, we talked about the possibility if you felt you got down to the real footprints of places of worships and they were likely not gonna change from year to year. Although you can do, multi-year 1, 2, places of worship are also not restricted by the 10-year, most permissive tax exemptions, the most you can do is 10 years at a time, but places of worship aren't limited to that, and there are numerous examples where they're just never they're treated almost the same as statutory, when it's the council does have that discretion to say, this is solid, it matches the statutory, and we don't want to deal with them for until a future council wants to look at that bylaw. So that is another option for council to look at.
Yes, Councillor Peak?
Conversely, if you put it out there that you didn't want to touch them, any council could bring it back in to look at.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, does it really change? I mean, it means that we wouldn't have to consider them each year.
That's the main.
And they wouldn't have to make an application, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, your policy can say they don't have to either, but it is sometimes where there's a certain certainty, even though council
Yeah.
could always decide to. There's a certain certainty by having a lengthy period of time on them.
But it seems to me that you would go for an extended period unless your overall policy's gonna change in terms of option 1 to option 4 that we've got sitting in front of us.
Yeah, like as long as, when councils are pretty sure that it's the parking lot and, or usable, there's nothing sort of extra
Extraneous.
on them, then there's a lot of, reason to be looking at a long-term one on those ones, because, it's
Yeah.
just in tandem with the statutories.
Yeah, unless there was a zoning change or something that triggered a review.
Or, yeah, or if they lost their statutory exemption, then you would be, you would be notified and you have to do amendment to your bylaw.
And there would be no options for any significant change as we look at, a new strategic plan or new budgets either, because it would be set.
For the, again, so we're
For
only
those.
talking the places of worship, which
Exactly,
are
well,
very
yeah.
small, the small footprints.
Yeah, okay.
There is real reason to treat that category, there's a real reason that it was split in kind of the in how, they've decided to present this, because they really are two
Yeah.
different things.
Okay, where do we go from here?
Well, I was wondering at this point if council would like to go back through the properties and advise us of any changes they might like to see in the bylaw we bring forward for consideration.
For these places of worship?
For the places of worship. Do you feel like that's where you would like to go with this process? Or would you like to have more time to think about it and we'll move on into the next group of properties?
Counselor Peak?
We subsidize a lot of parking lots. Obviously, traditionally, we subsidize a lot of parking lots and perhaps some vacant land. If there was any discussion, those would be the 2 points I would have discussion on. But again, it's the value of what's, to my mind, is the value of the community, of the collective of those properties, not just that they're parking lots or vacant land, because they can be used in various ways within a congregational use. And everybody, it is required that you need parking for a congregation to gather. So those would be the discussion points if we were to have them.
Yeah, I don't see that there are any discussion points with respect to the places of worship, because as you just pointed out, if they're gonna use the buildings, they're gonna have to have parking, and we require parking anyway. So, they go hand in hand, so I don't see any particular difference with those. Counselor Carlson?
I kind of think I might disagree with you. I think that we should be encouraging people to walk to church, carpool to church, park on the street,
I do.
find ways that perhaps reduces the need for that much parking space in certain, especially downtown areas where it doesn't necessarily need to be parked on church property in order to get to church on time. That's just me. I think that when I was reading through some stuff today, there's a lot of question about fundraising and volunteers and continuing to have contributions from members of the congregation or members of the school. And I wonder if we do something that is longer term and you set out this as the standard, are you then giving a free pass to not have to look for other funding sources or not have to take more steps towards being on more solid footing with other sources helping you out as well? So just some thoughts I've been having about not just with churches, but with all of the use of space in general.
I think, just to bring about a point, I think that is the point, though, that places of worship have always had, and there's potential for change, of course, but it is a special category, and I think you're quite right. As we look at a lot of the others that have yet to be examined, we may consider changes in approaches with a lot of those, but I think it's to make a quick change or any substantial change in places of worship would have to be considered very well considered. So at this point, I wouldn't be urging any particular change there, but I think it's probably open for consideration for just about everything else that we give permissive exemptions for. Counselor Trainer?
I just had a quick question. There was a couple that had extra green space around them, and you had said, or CAO had said something about them possibly being an investment. How are we supposed to know that?
It's not so much the green space, unless it's real obvious. The only ones here that in past practice that I've done would be the ones that actually have 2 lots.
Okay.
And I think there may, not like the one that's up here right now where it just happens not to be consolidated, but such as the,
Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses.
yeah, the Congregation of Jehovah's Witness, that's a separate lot that there's still parking. In previous places, that would be yeah, it's parking, but they still have parking, and so, it could be, it could possibly be investment, it doesn't have to be. So it's just whether or not the feeling from council is that adequate parking? Do they have to have that to hold their service?
Okay.
Again, it only comes down to if council's not concerned about the overall impact of the tax levy from the places of worship, then to approve them all is fine. But if the goal is to determine if there's any that are unfairly contributing, that's where you want to look at it. But just to have the green space in a yard at this point in time, it's, unless they were using it for some sort of rental purposes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Boot?
Thank you. My questions are a little bit about policy. So we have these, our list is divided into mostly class 6. No, mostly class 8, and then there's that one Montessori school is a class 6. And then all the rest are something else, maybe class 6, I'm not really sure. My question is, is it a single permissive tax exemption bylaw for the whole group? Or because we're looking at them as 2 separate groups, are there 2 different ones or 2 different parts of the bylaw?
You could typically, and there's many different ways of doing it, typically it would be one bylaw, each number, for each separate legal entity, a separate line that would say, this legal entity, this is how it's handled, this legal entity, this is how it's handled, is the most common way of doing it. You can have, sometimes you have a late one, something comes, right, and you need to add it on late, but you do an amendment, so it's usually one permissive tax exemption bylaw.
Okay, and then the second half to that question, thank you, Mr. Mayor, is, again, they're in 2 separate groups, kind of, as we're looking at them. So, say, for example, we agree at an option 2, say, for a church or place of worship that's listed here. Does that automatically mean that all of the places of worship all are on option 2?
No, you can, and that's, I think, just an option to, the options were just a way of talking about it. You could have a bylaw that looked like this. Property 1, such and such, a 1-year exemption for 80% of the assessed value. Property 2, a 3-year bylaw for 100%. So you wouldn't typically,
Okay.
that's an extreme example. You
Okay.
would try to lump them and categorize them
Right.
and probably even have separate bylaws for different years. But there's nothing between the 2 categories we're looking at or individual properties that have to be the same. So you
Okay.
can do 80%, 50%, 100%. I think recently there's been more of this thought of not necessarily 100%, as you're, especially with new nonprofits or something, and you're trying to give them starters, but you don't want it to become operational,
Right.
things like that. So, but they can be all different. They don't have to be grouped together.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? CFO?
So I'm not clear on where we're going. Does council, do we want to have more discussion? Do we want to move on to the next group?
I think we want to move on to the next.
Move
group.
on to the next group?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So maybe just as a bit of a lead-in, the next group then are the organizations that are not churches or schools or other places of worship, or hospitals also fit in that first group, but we don't have any applicants. So these are all of the different organizations within the District of Summerland that provide some type of service to the community. They're not-for-profit organizations, and by our policy, certain requests have been identified as being not eligible. So if there are requests, say, for a Class 1 residential property, which by our policy is not allowed, we've identified that and said,
Soon as you left
you know,
the room,
this
it stopped.
amount isn't included in any of our numbers and should not be considered unless council chooses to change that policy. If that really is where you want to go, then the policy would need to be amended first. We have information on the organizations, and we'll just start again. All right, Renee, you're up.
Okay.
So what page are we on? What page are we on there?
It says 23, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
So the first one we're looking at is the Kettle Valley Railway Society. They have a number of properties, and they basically run all along the track. So you have a couple pages that accompany the actual drawing, and it lists all of the folios that they're requesting a permissive tax exemption on.
Whoa.
The picture that you see is the red outlined area is actually an area owned by the district, and we lease it to Kettle Valley. And that's where where you get onto the railway. So it's just a picture of what the actual railway station is located at. The assessed value for all of the properties added together, most of them are Class 8 land, so $3,446,000 in land. But there is Class 6 improvements valued at $261,000. So we lease the area outlined, and it's up for renewal in December of 2015. So Jeremy will be working on renegotiating those terms. And they're requesting 100% of Class 6 improvements and Class 8 land. And they did receive a full exemption in the previous year, which was valued at a total of $23,482.37. Is there any questions about this property?
Nope.
Numerous properties.
Counselor Peak?
The question is not particularly to the exemption, but to the lease. And is the lease a nominal lease, Jeremy?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Is the lease a nominal lease or a substantial lease on this kind of property?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at this one specifically in a while.
Then I'll leave it alone. Thank you very
I
much.
can get that back to you.
Yeah.
It's a nominal lease, Counselor.
Thank you.
Doesn't seem to be any questions. Move to the next one.
And we're on to the South Okanagan Sailing Association. So this is one folio that you can see outlined in red there. The assessed value for Class 6 for the improvements is $36,300, and the remainder is Class 8 land valued at $1,387,000. The parcel of land is owned by the district, and it's currently leased to the association. The frontal area is Crown land that's covered under the former head lease, and the district and the province are currently working on renewing that. Now, the PTE is requested for 100% of the Class 6 improvements and the Class 8 value of the land. And in the prior year, that was valued at $8,855.64.
So they had 100% last year.
Correct.
Yeah. Any questions?
Next, we have the Royal Canadian Legion, and it has an assessed value for Class 6 at $503,500. Now with the Legion, this is one of the instances where we have an organization that has the opportunity to generate income within their facility. So we did a little research in relation to how different municipalities treat legions that operate in their community. And what the majority do is anything that's granted Class 8 distinction, which is recreation, they give a PTE for, whereas anything Class 6, they don't, because they have the ability to earn income from it. So that's currently the situation that we have. They're not requesting an exemption for their Class 6 value, we're just providing you with the details. The Class 8 value is assessed at $271,500, and that's what they requested their exemption for this year. Last year they received 100% PTE for Class 8, and it was valued at $1,671.87.
So can you tell me whether that's substantially changed over the last 5 years?
I believe it hasn't changed at all in terms of what Summerland has granted, 100% of Class 8.
Okay.
If I may, this would be typical of where I came from as well in the whole region, the way this is treated.
So the, on the Class 6, which is where they can get any fundraising or can make money, that's the buildings themselves, is it? Yeah.
Correct.
So the parking lots are the Class 8?
It would be a portion of the building. The building can be split between 6 and 8. So the activities that are commercial in nature, so where you're selling items, food, drink, conducting activities that you charge a fee for, those would be considered commercial in nature, and they would attract the Class 6. If you had part of that building that was,
Meeting space?
pardon me?
Meeting space?
Yes, which has got no fee attached to it, that would be in Class 8. So a building can be split between the
Okay.
two classes.
The reason I'm asking is, and maybe 5 years doesn't do it, in terms of historical information about how their taxes have progressed, or how their exemption has perhaps decreased over time. You know, some of these organizations are struggling, so I'm kind of wondering what the historical increases or decreases have been, because I think some of them, this may or may not be one of them, but I know a number of organizations have felt the pinch, and it's been affecting their ability to survive. So I'm kind of wondering where the Legion fits on that scale of things. You may not see it over the 5 years, because they may have been in a position at one point where they were much more exempt on more of it than they are now.
You may be recalling, I recall, and this is from memory as well, but we certainly can do some research on the topic and bring it back to our next meeting. I think there was a year where assessments dramatically increased.
Yeah.
And some additional exemptions were allowed because of that. And then many property owners along whatever the street, is that
Yeah.
Rosedale? Yes.
Yeah.
Complained to BC Assessment, and they came out and reviewed it and dropped assessments. So perhaps that's what you're recalling, because I know there was some additional permissive tax relief.
No, I'm aware of what you're saying, but I guess I'd have to look at, you know, each one in its history as we move along, but.
We certainly can provide some
Okay.
background.
Yeah, I'm aware of the Rosedale change, because the whole roadworks changed the property values for a lot of properties along the road at that
Right.
time. Counselor Peak?
I was going to just make a comment that sometimes the changes in an organization are not just related to this kind of exemption. Could be the number of members, the
Oh,
kind of
I'm aware
volunteers, all those kind of
Yes,
things.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay, carry on, thank you. Any other questions by anybody else? Okay, CFO, carry on.
We have the Summerland Chamber of Commerce as the next property, and it's entirely zoned as Class 6 at an assessed value of $407,000. It includes the Chamber of Commerce office and the adjacent parking lot, and they received an 100% PTE exemption last year, and that was a value of $3,527.71. Any questions about this property?
No.
This is the Summerland Golf Society. This is one that has two different class values. So we have Class 6 land valued at $84,000 and Class 6 improvements valued at $562,000. And then the large portion is the Class 8 land valued at $2,521,000. This is another instance where the Class 6 is used for commercial purposes. And so what we do is we prorate the permissive tax exemption based on the percentage used for non-for-profit activity. BC assessment, we had some discrepancies with the valuation of this property. And so BC assessment did come out. They evaluated the clubhouse area and the operations. And they've determined that for the Class 6 land, you could grant up to 75% allowable according to our policy, so it meets the requirements. That would be a value of $63,000. And in terms of the improvements, 67% is meeting our policy at a value of $376,540. And then they're requesting 100% exemption for the Class 8 land. Our percentages were a bit different in the prior year due to the discrepancies, and that's why we had BC assessment come out. But the total valuation of what they were granted in the previous year was $19,333 and 82 cents.
Counselor Carlson?
Is it common for a golf course to receive a tax exemption? Is this common practice?
I think that golf courses are dealt with differently in many municipalities, so you could see a municipality actually running a golf course in lots of locations. That happens. We didn't do any research on that, and we certainly could conduct a survey to see what's happening in other communities. In my experience, it is common from what I know, but we certainly could look into it to see if there are communities who are not granting.
I have done quite a bit of research on it because it came up in my last two municipalities, and it's not unheard of. I'm not so sure that it's common, but as stated, there are municipalities that have a municipal golf course that's actually run and operated by the municipality. So,
Counselor Peak?
None of the areas within the region that I represented before exempted any golf courses, so it's certainly up to discretions of councils.
Counselor Trainer, Counselor Barkle?
Isn't the difference here, though, that this one's run by a society and most golf courses are completely for profit?
many golf courses are nonprofit societies, but not all of them. The ones that are profit wouldn't get a permissive
Yeah,
tax exemption.
okay.
Yeah.
Counselor Barkle? Then Counselor Booth, then Counselor Carson.
I think that, golf is a recreational activity, the same as playing baseball, and the municipality provides baseball fields. We provide an arena for the hockey players and a pool for the swimmers, and it's not a big stretch to at least give a exemption for the golfers to be consistent with all the other recreational activities.
Yeah, and that sort of depends on your
Philosophy.
policy and your philosophy of, if again, going back to whether or not it's your extension of your services that you offer, and how open it is to the public. So if you have a golf course such as ours, it's very open
is
to
open,
the
yes.
public. But you really, to go down the path to think that all recreational facilities should be covered all the time. Right now, maybe in Summerland, that's still manageable, but I can tell you, in many municipalities, it is not manageable. It is not possible unless you want everybody to pay triple amount of taxes that they pay already to provide a grant or a permissive tax exemption. So it becomes more of a struggle as more of these groups, amenities come in.
Counselor Boot, Counselor Carlson.
I apologize, Renee. I'm sorry, I don't know what your title is.
Manager of Financial Services.
I apologize, Manager of Financial Services.
That's a long
I
mouthful.
missed, you told me that 75% was granted for Class 6, that portion of this property, and then you mentioned 67%.
So the Class 6 has two separate categories. It has land, and then
Okay.
it has improvements.
Improvements, right, thank
Yeah.
you.
So 75% was for the land,
Right.
and then 67 applied to the improvements.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Carlson.
One of the things that I learned when doing my research this morning was that one of the sort of the big reasons that we would give this is that a venue would offer this service to the majority of people from Summerland. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to find out how many people perhaps come and play golf that don't live in Summerland and pay their taxes here, and if that matters when we have this conversation.
Certainly, it depends, this is sort of the first time in quite some time, from what I understand, that the District of Summerland has taken this comprehensive look at things with all of council. Certainly, it is a technique used on municipalities, maybe not their first round through, but after they've given notice to organizations that they're going to, a 1-year notice to say that they're going to look at the impact and the number of usage and not so much focus. So it is certainly something that is done, whether or not it would be prudent to do it at this
Right.
date.
So it could be something that we talk about. I imagine there's other facilities as well that we would want to find out how many of the members or of the people who pay to use that service are from here and live here and pay taxes in Summerland and would be then contributing back.
Because the other portion of that, again, why we go down to the strategic planning, if drawing tourism or economic development to your area is also high on your list of strategic priorities, then it's not so much important who's from Summerland, but is that amenity that you don't provide yourself as a municipality, but that draws people here. So it's
Right.
not always only the taxpayers,
Right.
it's the big, more holistic picture. And that's why strategic planning in the long run comes into the picture.
Thanks.
Counselor Barkwell.
Yes, I think that our COA put it nicely for us. You can look at any of those things even, deeper. I mean, the membership could argue that, gee, without these out-of-town people coming to contribute their fees and such, we wouldn't be able to support this for the local people. So it's not necessarily.
Well, and I'm not saying
yeah,
that I don't want to
yeah.
support the golf club. I just
Mhm.
think we need to investigate if it hasn't been done.
Yeah,
And we need to
yeah.
follow the rules of permissive tax exemption
Yeah.
and make sure we understand why we grant
Mhm.
these and what it means to the people who would otherwise use that money for something else
Yeah.
or whatever. So
It's all part of the discussion.
that's
yeah.
right. So it just needs to come up, and if it's not in the next couple of weeks, then it should be before we do this next year.
I think, that's why the CAO mentioned the strategic plan and the impact and so on, because, you have to look at the overall, what sells Summerland? Personally, when I first came here, I didn't play golf, but I swam. The key reason why I moved here was because they had a rec center. Penticton didn't have one at the time, period, nothing. So these amenities that are in the community are very critical, and when we have discussions about our strategic plan, the impact of tourism, the influx of dollars that are not just dollars initiated here, but dollars that are coming in from everywhere are critical in terms of how Summerland's perceived as a place to go and be, taking holidays, et cetera, et cetera. Because I can tell you that something like the golf course is heavily dependent on green fee money coming in to survive. So with declining, the demographic, for example, is declining, it's more and more difficult, but they are big dollars that do come into the community. Okay, I guess we can move on.
Just had
CFO?
a couple of things to note on that, just in response to Councillor Carlson's.
Yep.
In terms of the number of members, this wouldn't distinguish between from the community or inside, but they've provided a number of 500. But again, we'd have to further analyze in order to see if they were coming from other areas. And also on this property, there is a Class 1 assessment on it. The value is land at 12,000 and improvements at 1,100. And Class 1 doesn't meet our corporate policy in terms of permissive tax exemptions, so those aren't included in the information, but they are at the bottom of your table for any requests that aren't in accordance with policy. And it's just a small trailer that they have on the area. The next property is the Summerland Recreation Society, and that operates as the Lakeshore Rackets Club. There's 2 folios there's actually numerous folios. So the larger one is on the right-hand side of the screen, and you can see that that is the courts along with the building and surrounding parking lot. There's also a parking lot located adjacent to the courts. So it's a small triangle area. This is the triangle area up here, and that area is currently leased to the waterfront resort. So they use it to park boats. And then in the building, they lease out the top floor to the, looking for the name, Lakeside Fitness, Lakeshore Health and Fitness. So it's 2,000, on here we have 2,000 square feet. Do you have the updated? It's about 2,800. So we're doing a lot of research in terms of this property because we want to make sure that the assessed values are correct. We don't have it. Okay. So what we need to do is look at what portion of the property is used to generate income and what portion is used for recreational purposes. As I mentioned, there is this triangular area that's currently leased out and the upper floor of this building. Now in the past, there's been different percentages used, and our preliminary numbers on the listing are 78% for the Class 8 land and Class 6 was 50% and 61% for improvements.
Yeah, so this property, in the past received 50% on the Class 6 land, 61% on the Class 6 improvements, and 22% on the Class 8 land. The Class 8 land is assessed value at just over $1.5 million. The Class 6 land is assessed at $170,000. The total between those two is a 10% split for Class 6 and a 90% for Class 8. So the Class 8 is certainly the larger portion of the assessment for the property. And that's just for the larger property on the right-hand side. It doesn't include any of the values for the small lots along the roadway. So we are currently using those percentages from the assessed value as it's been provided, but we are in contact with BC Assessment to confirm that they have the most recent information possible for this property, And should any changes develop, we will certainly provide them to council at our next meeting.
So, oh, Counselor Carlson, sorry.
I don't know who this is directed to, but if there's 10 miniature parcels of land right along the roadway, what's the potential to utilize that for something other than
For
just
roads.
green space and, yeah, it's just sort of there.
Well, they are separate parcels of land. They are able to be sold. I don't have with me tonight what the zoning on that property is, so that would be a consideration
Okay.
that we need to find out for you.
Would it be prudent to ask someone in the audience if they have any thoughts on this? Or,
Well, I don't think that they're really that the parcels are relevant to are
Yeah,
they
just-
asking for an exemption on the parcels as well?
Yes,
Did-
they
Oh,
have.
I'm sorry.
and so I just
Class
wonder
8.
what the potential of that is and why does the racket club hold on to them? You know, what is it?
If I may, pretty much the only thing due to setbacks that would be able to do with that property would be so small it wouldn't make any sense. You can't build a house on it. The land is literally either way.
It's a buffer.
Yeah, so it's essentially a setback.
If I understand correctly, the history of those lots goes way back
To railway.
to them being part of the railway setup where there were actually booths for selling things on very small, just like small booths. If I remember correctly, going way back into the 20s or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Even when I was a small boy, yeah, right.
So,
Counselor Trainer, then Counselor Carlson.
So, I'm just wondering, why would the racket club have to pay taxes on those? Like, why would that be included in this if they don't use it and they're just kind of these weird little lots?
They have the option always to consolidate, so they don't have to be little lots like that, like
Oh,
if the
okay.
racket club, so it's actual property that they own. And if they're not buildable, I was just gonna look them up to
Oh,
see
they
what
own them,
size of
okay.
it. So they actually own them, and they
Okay.
could be consolidated into one that doesn't bother, cause there's no real need to, so.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Could I, there's a few other issues I'd like to speak to, but maybe leave it to, with
Yeah,
the-
okay, we'll pass for now then. Yeah, my question here is not those separate properties, but the exemption is, you know, whatever it is, but what do they actually pay in property tax?
We'd have to look that up. We don't have that information tonight, so we can certainly provide that at the next meeting.
Okay,
I can provide that
okay.
again later.
Okay, thank you, yeah. Okay, I guess we'll proceed. There's some philosophy around some of these properties that I would like to get into. Because, yeah, sorry, Counselor Booth.
Do you want to finish your sentence?
No, just go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
I
I-
did finish.
I just want to make sure I heard correctly. So that, let's see, 22% in previous years, I guess last year, was granted for the permissive tax exemption was granted for that 78% of the Class 8 land. Am I correct there?
On the Class 8 land, 22%.
22%.
So 78 was not of that value.
What I'm kind of wondering is the Class 8 is considered recreation. And I think I heard that of the total area there, 90% of the property is Class 8 recreation,
The assessed value, yes, of the land,
but only 22% was granted?
yes.
That doesn't quite jive with me. That it seems to be
We don't,
off.
right, we don't have any historical notes on how the 22% came, but I would remind council that permissive tax exemptions are at the discretion of council.
Right.
You know, as we've said many times tonight, you can treat properties differently.
Right.
There, certainly the council made a decision to grant that exemption in that way.
Okay.
If we were to apply the same concepts that we're applying to other properties, then we would say the building where the upper floor is rented out, that area would not be eligible for an exemption. The parking lot, the piece of it that is rented out, would not be eligible for an exemption. The laneway or driveway and the parking around the building, the value of those improvements would need to be split in some fashion between the non-exempt use of the fitness center and the racket club use.
Right.
And that's the same philosophy that's been applied on the golf course. So we do want to explore that with BC Assessment, if they can give us some assistance in coming up with some breakdown to apply that in a rational manner. But at the end of the day, it is the decision of the council for the amount of support you want to give to an organization as well. Right? So we
Just-
certainly will continue to work on getting sort of a technical piece straightened out.
Okay.
And see what those numbers look like. So at this point in time, we don't have that information. The assessed value isn't, we don't have enough granularity with it to be able to do that.
Okay.
So
So
just
it's
to-
a complicated one then.
It is complicated, but I think that was stated very well and needs to be restated again, that, you know, we went through some of the background information and the little available notes or history that there were on why. But it needs to be remembered that there doesn't need necessarily to be reasons why. Council might have felt, for whatever their priorities were, that didn't, even though you could legitimately say it was maybe the same as the golf course or something else,
have to be.
but it doesn't mean that then council has to say, geez, we should treat it the same. This council may, after you go through all of this, say, we want all of those recreation type of organizations to be treated the same. And we're not gonna judge if we think that one's more open to the public or more accessible or less, that we want it to be treated the same. Council can give us that direction and we can do calculations, but you don't have to. And not just with this one, but on any of them, so.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to say that the reason we're not going to basically let anybody speak at this point, you can provide background information to staff and they'll consider it as they're doing their research on the subject, because it essentially isn't fair to a lot of other groups that aren't here that might, you know, I know.
Well,
But-
when I hear some of the history being confused, it gets.
Yeah, well, yeah, I realize that, and that's where we're gonna try and, if we need to, we can research, which means maybe consulting with the organization.
That's, the reason that there's likely gonna be 2 meetings is we're gonna have questions from council, and as you get down to debating and discussing things, you may have questions that you need more research done, and it'll come back to the next meeting.
I think what was pointed out too by the CAO, that we could easily have a different philosophy as we develop our strat plan as to how we may treat some of these recreation facilities or amenities and so on. So, you know, that's essentially somewhat dependent on the philosophy of council, where they're gonna move. Was there questions here? Councillor Peak, did you have one, Councillor Booth? Councillor Peak?
I make note of the fact that the parcel of land towards the water has a pathway that the municipality
Oops.
actually created. And that pathway infringes on land that is used publicly, and that land is used publicly not just on the path, because people play on that grass and the pets wander around. So we use that land as well in a recreational purpose, not just the racket club. I just make note of that.
Okay, we ready to move on then? Okay,
Summerland Senior Citizens Drop-In Association. One tax roll for this property. It's the association building with the adjacent parking lot. They received 100% exemption on their Class 6 land and improvements last year, assessed value of $426,600. And the value of their permissive tax exemption was $3,697.60. Any questions on this one?
Hearing none? No? Go ahead.
The Summerland Yacht Club is the next property. We have two folios here. You can see the one towards the top of the screen, so 574 is assessed with a Class 6 for a value of $241,700 land and improvements, and for Class 8, the land is assessed at $1,559,000. The parcel of land is Crown land, and it's under the former head lease with the District of Summerland in the province. And the district sublets the property to the yacht club. Now on this parcel is the clubhouse, parking lot, docks and moorage. And then you can see the bottom property. It has a Class 6 value of $350,000 for land and improvements. And this land is also Crown land, and we sublet it to the club as well. Last year, they received 100% exemption on these properties, and it was valued at $14,728.79. And they're requesting 100% for both this year as well.
Any questions? Counselor Barkwell?
So is the commercial aspects, the lounge and kitchen and stuff there all allocated exactly the same way it is at the Legion? Between, the sort of an exempt and a non-exempt portions?
It hasn't been in the past.
So,
We have Class 6. We have Class 6 and we do have Class 6 land and improvements that we haven't been granting it, the district hasn't been granting a permissive exemption on. So I think we should do some more research on that to see if it is being done exactly the same way as the Legion. Yeah,
and the golf course.
and the golf course.
And yet, we've had it explained to us that it's up to us, we can treat them differently if we so wish.
Absolutely.
Right.
But we can confirm whether, that you have complete information
Yeah.
before you
Exactly.
make your decision.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that kind of lurks in the back of my mind on these things is that a lot of these properties that are, well, especially the lakeshore ones, have probably had an astounding value increase in assessments over the decades. And it's like having an elderly couple owning a house that they bought in 1955 in Trow Creek and having that assessment go up and up so that at some point in time they cannot afford to live in their own house any longer. And a lot of these recreational facilities that are amenities to the citizens largely are in the same boat. And it's a difficult thing to, metaphor meant.
You feel like an old couple, eh?
And I think that's part of our discussion as we go forward, that we have to look at that because it'd be very easy to tax them into non-existence. I mean, based on the values that are there, it would be simple to do.
So we do have some clarity on that question. There are two parcels, and the first parcel, so the inner one, has the Class 6 land at 15,700, the improvements at 226,000, and the Class 8 land at $1,559,000. Those are the full values for that parcel, and it's been granted 100% exemption in the past. The part that didn't receive any exemption at all was the second folio, so the lower piece, and it has Class 6 at $234,000 for the land and improvements of $126,000 that received no permissive exemption in the past.
Can you show me which?
The
Piece
U
of-
horseshoe there.
The horseshoe.
Yeah, so
So
the,
this parcel here
Yeah,
received 100% exemption.
yeah,
They did request exemption on the second one,
yeah.
and it was declined.
And the question would be whether or not there was any public use of that the second horseshoe there. There may or may not be, but it's not
Seems to
necessarily
be
connected.
part and parcel of the whole thing.
Yeah.
That would be just a question to ponder.
It's used for memorial, is our understanding. and
See-
for closets.
It seems to me that the
Yeah.
574, its very existence is contingent on 575. I mean, the breakwater is there to protect the yacht basin. It's all the way around. They have to have some sort of perimeter. And also 575 provides access to 574. So I don't know why you would treat one any differently than the other.
Yeah, it's just been the past decision of council that they
Yeah.
granted 100% on 574, and exemption was requested on 575, but
Yeah,
they
well,
chose not to.
I can see their point. Any other questions? Move ahead.
We have the Summerland Youth Center Association. The parcel of land is owned by the District of Summerland, and the youth center leases a portion of the property from the district. They constructed their own building on the property, so you can see it near the top here. That's their building. And then they use the parking lot surrounding it. This parcel of the land is rented to the local lumberyard, and this area here is where the skate park will be developed.
is developed.
Is developed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're requesting 100% exemption for Class 6 land and improvements. Value is $1,631,000. And the value of the permissive tax exemption in the previous year was $14,136.86.
Counselor Carlson.
On this one, I don't quite understand. It's just the building and the parking lot, similar to when we were looking at the churches, for example. I mean, it doesn't include the parks and rec area and any of that other stuff, correct, in the value?
It includes the entire folio in the
Oh, it
value.
includes, so everything in that red
Yes.
line is all included as the 1.6
Yes,
valuation.
that's correct. It's only one piece.
So if those are already leased out by the district to other things or used by the district, I guess that just doesn't really make sense, does it?
I would say that we will look into whether the lease needs to be registered in some different way. There may be some conditions about that property that preclude it from being registered in any way other than it is right now. But I will check with the Director of Development Services about that situation and whether there is a way for the district to have that parcel. So when we register a lease, BCA will create a second folio that's kind of linked to this first one, which would perhaps make it more clear than this top area is what we're talking about for the youth center.
Right.
And the remainder is really our own.
Right.
Yes.
But it is not unusual to have a larger parcel and to have a lease that just describes the location in it, and it just depends how we have it registered with land titles, so.
Okay, so if we lease out that lumber area, and that we receive an income on that, and it's a long-term lease, do we tax the user on that portion as a different parcel? Are they paying taxes on the land that they're using?
They sure should. They sure absolutely should.
You're
But if
talking
it's
a
part of
lumberyard.
that parcel that we're exempting, then no, we don't count it
You
in
only,
our tax
you're
rate?
actually only exempting the piece that you, depending on, and I didn't hear, how much is taxed on this one, but it's
The whole
the
thing.
whole thing.
And
There's-
so
It sounds to me like
alright,
there's a
it's
little
more-
bit of a mistake on this one.
Yeah.
So essentially, they should only be taxed on the parking lot building, and the balance of it, skateboard park, lumber thing, should be a separate
Municipal
issue.
property.
Yeah.
And
I
it could
should-
be that they've done it informally in past years as far as capturing the taxes just through the lease, and estimating the taxes, but it's not the preferred method of doing it, so it's probably housekeeping that we need to do to clean it up.
Counselor Barkle and Counselor Trainer?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. They could have easily just factored the taxes into the amount they charge for the lease and made it a moot point that the whole property's exempt.
Right, but still, it's still, from a taxation base-wise, it should still.
Should be.
Be clean and clear.
It's
But
still
the
be
and
cleaned
the
up.
district owns that land,
Yeah.
so
So I guess the only thing, the
Complicated.
school taxes and other taxes wouldn't have been collected in the same way.
Yeah, no, it's not the right way of doing it. By law, if it's a commercial piece of property on your district property, it needs to be in the tax. And the problem is, if it doesn't get registered on title, then it doesn't get caught.
Right.
So that'll be
Right.
cleaned up.
Odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be cleaned up. Counselor Trainer?
I think my question's answered.
Okay. Okay, that's a good one, yeah. Okay, next.
The next one is a new request for this year. It is the Summerland Athletic Club, and it's operating as the Summerland Badminton Club. There's one tax roll. The assessed value, Class 6, is valued at $163,500, and Class 8 at $124,000. It's the small parcel of land that you can see at the top of the picture, and it's their club's building with the adjacent parking lot. And they're requesting a permissive tax exemption for 100% of the Class 6 land and improvements, as well as the Class 8 land. And that would be a value of $2,180.73 based on the current year tax rates.
So just clarification, it's a new application, but they've made application in the past, and it wasn't granted, or they'd never made application in the past?
They didn't apply last year, but they applied previous to that.
So the Class 6 portion, which is essentially, well, it must be a mixture there because it's the use of the badminton club, but the Class 6 portion, is that just considered as a percentage of the whole building?
It will be the building, and it's 100%. We don't have information that they're doing any commercial activity in there.
Mhm. I guess my point is that, recently they made substantial improvements to the building, which may be accounting for the increased assessment.
It has land in Class 6 at $83,100 and improvements at $90,400.
Oh, okay.
So it is
Yeah,
caught.
it doesn't sound like it went up. Counselor Carlson?
I notice we've come to the end of the slideshow, but we haven't seen anything on here from the Cat Shelter Society, Critter Aid. Is that missing, or?
That was a new request in the
Just
current
different.
year. It's the
Okay.
Summerland Cat Sanctuary Society. And the way that it is zoned, it is all a Class 1 property.
Uh-huh.
Land is valued at $423,000 and improvements at $282,000. But because Class 1 doesn't meet our district policy, it hasn't been included in that information. It is on the bottom of the Appendix B.
Yeah.
That will show you the values.
Right.
Did you contact BC Assessment about why that is, that whether or not Class 1 is what they actually intend for it to be classed as?
We haven't, but
You probably should maybe ask someone.
So class, just remind me, class 1
Residential.
is
Residential.
strictly residential. Okay, sorry. So there's actually a residence there as well as this Society for Cats.
I'm just gonna make reference to the
Counselor Trainer?
There's a caretaker that lives upstairs in the house, and then the bottom of the house is where all the cats are. I volunteer there, so.
I see.
And it
Being-
does
being
say
a cat-
caretaker rental income.
Being a cat person, yes. Cat lady.
Are there any further questions?
Not for me. I've had lots. Anybody else? Counselor Carlson? Counselor Peak, are you good? Counselor Peak?
I'm fine.
Anything? Anybody else?
The question is going to be on how, if council wants to start to talk today about the process you want to go through, or if you feel that the last 2 hours have been a lot of information and you need to think and regroup and have us bring back the pieces of information that you left. So it's, I think the discussion to have now is really about whether or not you want to start talking about some of your overriding themes, or not.
Counselor Peak?
Well, I wondered if we might want to take away thinking about if we looked at a percentage that we might use and therefore fit the, as needs be, each of these properties, so you spread, you prorate the amount. So if you stayed, for instance, just for the sake of discussion, at 1.7, which is what we did in the past year, and you said that's as high as we wanted to go, and however we fit it, we prorate it. But that's all that we would expect the rest of our community to absorb, for instance. That maybe that's something we should give consideration to come back and have a discussion on. As well as the information that we've asked in detail to better consider these properties.
Counselor Carlson?
Are there any, like, checks and balances? So if we decide to give an exemption to, let's say, the Legion, and it means that they now have an extra $3,000 that they can now pass along to another worthy cause, is there, other than just knowing that they're good people and they do good things, is there any reason that we would care to follow up on something like, on any of this? Or does it not matter at all?
I think that it's my feeling in my past life as a finance person that is imperative, that councils start over time becoming much more active with their permissive tax exemptions and looking at what they expect. You know, when you give somebody a grant, you expect reporting on it, and you expect to see if they met the terms. And that's all that permissive tax exemption is, as I've said many times, is a grant that you're giving, and it doesn't get looked at as a grant in many times. People just take it as an expectation. And yes, it's important for the community that we have these, but as you can see here, we can't keep going and every time a new nonprofit comes in without that, and you can't set criteria unless you start doing that kind of monitoring and looking at how you're doing it. So it might, again, these are big steps and big jumps to take, but I think that kind of follow-up, there's no requirement. You can just sign that bylaw and say it is what it is.
Right.
But it's best practice-wise would be a very good thing.
So just to follow up on that then, if we were to say, maybe a decision is made to not contribute 100% to all of the religious institutions, but perhaps 80, and then that other 20% goes to a humanitarian cause or something that the people of Summerland, all of them would get behind. Just throwing it out there, just another idea. Perhaps it's towards, supporting
more Syrian families or doing something meaningful instead of just handing out grant money to societies that have existed forever and then it just is there and gone and we don't think about it ever again?
I think that's why I would tend to want to go with the CAO's first comments about, examining what we've done, asking for staff to do some of the research that they've talked about needing some more depth on. Because I see that the philosophy of this council may be somewhat different than those of the past, and I think Council Carlson brings some good ideas up, that we want to be sure that the future in terms of the economy, the attractiveness of the community, et cetera, fits in with our philosophy and where our strat plan may go, so that, and it may require looking at each one of these, areas, or even individuals, individual organizations, somewhat separately, to see how things fit. I'm not too sure we can do blanket stuff.
I think that one of the things that I notice here, well, first of all, I notice that our permissive tax exemptions are high, but it's a little bit of a nature of some of the properties where the permissive tax exemptions happen to be on the water or with high exemptions. We're $40,000 higher than my background in City of Nelson, for example. $40,000 difference or higher than that on a similar size community. But the difference also, though, is that many of ours applications are for very similar type of services. So it becomes really hard for council, with the exception of that you could have a discussion about the Legion, but, whether or not you're talking about the yacht club or the badminton club or the sailing club or whichever ones, they're all and the golf course, they're all very similar types of organizations. So it makes it harder. So maybe that's why you need to start working on that long-term plan, because you can't just, it's very difficult to cut one out or to, but I think to move forward now, I think you are gonna have to come up with an idea on whether or not you wanna stay to a certain cap, and then staff can go away and present options on how you could get to that cap if you don't.
In terms of a total amount of
A
exemption.
total of, if you don't wanna spend any more dollars than last year, but you might want to be more inclusive or something, then we may have to really look a little bit more into this and find out our information on some of the questions that we have. But that would be good guidance if you're thinking that you want to stay to a certain level or not.
If I may,
Councillor Peak, yes.
that's what I was trying to say. If you stayed, I was doing it on a percentage basis, but you could do it on a dollar value. Because as your assessment increases, then you're just dragged into 100% of whatever the assessment is. Whereas if you decide whether you call it a cap or whether you do a percentage, or whether we say a dollar amount, and then it's just spread over whoever applies.
Or different scenarios.
Yes,
Based on whatever rationale we have.
Yes, I mean, there can
when
be
we're
other
working.
conditions around it, but that would just be one more of the conditions of how you might look at the whole picture.
Yeah, I think probably by looking at a grand total or in terms of a cap, probably it makes more sense to be able to look at that in terms of its impact on the budget. Is
I
that-
mean, it was at what, $114,000, $114,000 municipal funds last year in permissive tax exemption.
It's a lot of money.
So,
It is, but I think that's where you have to look at that and say, okay, look at the areas where we, if you wanna call them grants, that we gave out in terms of exemptions. I think if you're gonna look at classes of them, well, sure. What does the community want? You can say, okay, that's the cost of doing business to have the community that we have. If you can say, okay, we can't afford to do that if the cap was 114, but we can only afford to have a cap of 85, then we have to change things. And that may mean substantial changes in terms of how we want the community to look. And right now, it could be, it may sound like a big figure, but it may be the cost of doing business to be attractive and have the ability for our residents to participate and to attract tourism dollars. So you can look at specific costs, but you also have to look at, okay, what is the return to the community for those dollars spent in grants?
I understand there's an impact involved. I'm just saying that one way of looking at how you control it is looking at the conditions behind
I'm just-
and whether you
yeah.
do a cap or not.
Yeah, I'm saying that, if we have a starting point of the cap, then that may allow us to go forward and maybe a starting point for this year. And as we look at our budget, well, strat plan will drive the budget, as we've said. But we need to be able to go through that process as a council, develop the budget, and then we'll have more indicators as to what we may wanna do in the future.
And
But
I
I think
want,
it's difficult right now to say, okay, we're gonna change that cap substantially, because we have this position of having to come up with the answer by October 31st for this. So we're kind of like a year behind, or a year ahead, whichever way you wanna look at it. But, we need to go into that cycle. And I think I certainly don't wanna impact these organizations any more than we are right now at this time, prior to developing our own strategic plan that will determine our budget and hence determine what the impact of that, whatever the cap may be in the future. Because all those things have to be judged by what is this community. And if the things we do with permissive tax are the color and the aesthetics of the community, then you have to be careful what you do with that.
and I just want to follow up on that last comment. The reason I'm pushing pretty hard to just make sure you understand the numbers is for that exact reason, with it coming out before budget. Then to just keep in your mind when you're doing that, when you're talking during budget about roads and whether or not you have an extra 40,000 to put in roads, or whether it's gonna be okay to your residents to say it's 1% tax increase more than what you wanna have it, or whether it's our own facilities. So not to, and it is the flavor of the community, but so are the roads and
Exactly,
the
of
facilities.
course.
And the level of your taxation. So you just have to be putting it into your own bucket to be thinking about it.
Counselor Barkle and Counselor Trainer?
I'm being torn back and forth here with all these
Of course, yeah.
very, very, good points. And in particular, the CAO's point, I think we will have to, and will always be higher than some other communities because of the lakeshore things and because of the nature of our community. All the volunteers that do get together and do these great things, like the golf course and the Kinsman Center and things like that. It's part of who we are as a community, that there are so many of these things that qualify. We're even perhaps a more religious community than some and have more churches.
Good point. Counselor Trainer?
I just have a thought as I'm trying to process all this new information. When it comes to churches, they all, we don't ever say yes to one and no to the other. Like, if we're gonna do grants, we do them all, right? Is that?
Yeah.
tradition
In the
of
scheme of
stuff?
things too, I think your churches are pretty minimal because so much of them are statutory. Do you have that whole group summarized
I
by
guess
any chance?
my point is we would never say yes to one and no to another, right?
But you might say no to that much room, and
Okay.
yes to the question is, are any of the churches, all churches got statutory, so
Yeah.
they all have it. So then it's like, well, you would probably say yes to all the parking, but you might say no to that much parking or that much footprint, that's not okay in how much we exempt for any given church. And again, I haven't looked at them close enough. There's that one that's got the big parking lot, but there may be a couple, but
Okay.
for the most part, you're consistent.
Okay, so that's kind of leading into my next point. Obviously, all of the grants that we give out are to do, should closely relate to our strategic plan, but I also think that it's important to be fair to people. So when I look at recreational organizations in our community, is it fair that we give some a grant and others not? And so that's why I was trying to relate it to churches. If we give it all to churches, should we not apply those rules to other categories as well? It's just a thought.
that consistency, I think that's, the director in finance and I were talking about it earlier, that the consistency is something that is probably is a good thing to, if you really do have apples and apples. If you don't have a reason to,
Exclude some
Ex-
part.
Right, that's what I mean.
then it, on principle, it's probably not a bad thing to say, you know, again, getting more developed over time, to say, okay, what are we gonna put into place to try to not do this automatically, or
Yeah.
to not make it reliant on it, but when you've got apples and apples, yeah,
Okay, thanks.
it don't have to take that principle, but one would think it's not a bad principle to take.
I think, too, you know, one additional thing that many of the organizations that grew up in Summerland over time have grown and increased their value through sweat equity. And so when it looks like you work hard to make your organization something, you increase the value of the facilities, or you put extra effort into it, and then you're penalized for that extra effort by increasing the value, and hence increasing or decreasing the amount of the exemption in actual dollars. So, you know, you've got a small community here that's grown and has an awful lot of what it has due to the citizens that have put everything together, that initially decided, let's have a tennis club, or let's have a not a racket club, but a sailing club, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I don't want to penalize people for having the drive to put something together, increase the value of things, and then we say, oh, good, we've got an increased value, we're going to get some tax out of them. Because that just doesn't work for me.
There's one last thing that I'd like to throw out to council that again, other communities are really starting to look at that, and that is that what you don't want with your permissive tax exemptions is we have organizations that have prime lakefront property, and every organization, whether you're a profit or you're nonprofit, has to make decisions. And you don't want your permissive tax exemptions to stop people from being forced to look at the best way to do business and look at their options for earning income and doing other, and I think that's where a big push sometimes is coming. It's not a ticket to say you don't need to figure out if you need to change your business model, or that you don't, some nonprofits don't operate very well. I've been impressed with a few of them that I see here, so I'm not talking about necessarily here in Summerland, but in the big scheme of things, they need a pushing many times to do business differently, or if you do have valuable land, to say, okay, ultimately that's an investment we're making as well. So it's not necessarily they're still the ones holding the land. They're still in a society that if they sold that land, not to say any of these could, but that all has to be in your mix as well. Is there options to do things differently, or to have different businesses, or?
So what are we telling our staff to do tonight?
I just wanted to add one piece of information. You asked about the churches, so $24,148.
Out of 113.
Yeah.
So it's relatively small in the big scheme, you know, you probably could, if you were, it's still around, because of it, so much of the parcels being statutory.
Yeah, no, I was more just
Yeah,
concerned
the
about the
fair-
fairness
yeah.
between them.
Yeah.
So what do we want to do for this year? Do we want to have another meeting? I don't think we can, well, in terms of budgetary implications, to shift the cap around very much at this point in time, probably can't do it.
Well, if you added to, but if you did decide, if the direction that you gave the staff was that you wanted all of the applications to receive permissive tax exemptions, and to shift the ones that need some shifting, then your cap's going up. So the question would be, do you want to see some scenarios that would accommodate all the applications? Like, if council has come to consensus that they want to support the applications because they want to go with the theory that they are the same and that you've done enough due diligence and you feel like they're same, there's more work for us to do that. We need to look at the way we apply on the clubhouses and making sure they're the same, and anyone has retail. There's some more work. That alone is guidance to us. We can
Okay.
work on that. We can look at come back with 3 or 4 different scenarios for council, judging by a little bit more research that we could do.
Would that help us then at some point in deciding whether we move the cap up or down? Or the
Well,
total
yeah, I
amount?
think at that point in time, you would see, like, if, you would see, I'd say at that point in time, don't even talk about, just say it's in approximately the same
Okay,
amount, see
yeah,
what comes
yeah.
out of
Yeah,
it.
that's
And
what
then
I'd
you
be
can shift from that. That would give us the building blocks to take a deeper dive in some of the ones that need more work. And it would only be scenarios that come back to council, then you could massage it
Okay,
from there.
I'd rather do that. Counselor Barkwell?
I wasn't going to worry about it at first because it didn't seem like it'd be too much, but a little bit of information on, it's a bit judgmental, but there is a couple of those churches where they have more land than they need for parking lots, and perhaps we could get some information as to, I don't know if it's fair to put this onto staff, but what a reasonable amount for parking is, and then what the access is, and how many dollars that really means. If an extra acre of green space is only another $100 or something in permissive tax, then probably it's getting too complicated for the amount of
Well,
money.
we could look at a scenario where, on a couple of the ones that appear on first glance to be very much more,
Mhm.
we could do some work and bring it back on those ones, just those few. There's not very many,
Yeah.
but there's
If it's
a
not
couple.
material,
Yeah.
then, but
it
maybe
might
it
be,
is, yeah.
But just the consistency.
That would be on all of the ones we've looked at, not just churches we're talking about.
Well, and that, for that
Yeah.
particular one.
Well,
We're
yeah.
already doing our due diligence
Yeah.
on the
On
other
the
one,
other
so,
side.
just that issue on the church one.
I'd be comfortable with where the discussion has gone
Yeah.
and what we're looking for to come back.
Yeah, same here. Everybody else, do you need a motion to that effect? Counselor Boot?
I just need some clarification a little bit. So the suggestion right now is because we haven't, we only have until the end of the month to get this into place. Is the suggestion that we just go with a certain cap?
I don't think that's been for council's decision yet. If what we would do is we'd be bringing back some scenarios for account. There's quite a few questions right now, so it's hard to think in our heads how much effect it would have by adding the 2 new applications in and making a few of the little changes that we said. So we'd bring a number of scenarios. So then, for example, if to stay at the level that
Got a
we're
motion.
at now would mean giving everybody a 95 instead of 100, then you would be able to see that number, and then that's when council would make the decision. Do we put everyone at 95 so that we can meet that number, or do we go to 100 and so that we're okay with the difference, or whatever other way?
Okay, so using that, what you've just said, the 95% that you're, hypothetically anyways, 95% of the 2015 amount approved, so the 113.6? Is that what you're thinking? In
No,
this
95%,
hypothetically?
Of
no.
129.
So if somebody gets a $2,000 tax exemption this year, instead of the equivalent to 2,000 next year, them getting 95% of 2,000. If that was a way of staying, and that's, that's just one of many scenarios that's possible. If in the end you want to stay at 114,000, there's going to be 3 or 4 different ways of if you're adding new people, there's going to be 3 or 4 different ways of getting there. Cut one because of there's some legitimate reason, cut everybody a minute amount, there's lots of different ways, or be okay with going up a little
I
higher.
think,
Okay, so the reason I'm asking these questions is I'm a little concerned for some of the ones that have taken quite a leap, like Shore Rackets Club as an example, and I just want to make sure that that leap will be taken into consideration. So by the leap, for
mean
example, the
in
Summerland
actual
Yacht Club
tax
is another
amount,
one.
in actual tax dollars paid.
Well, the Racket Club would be
For
one
the-
that currently doesn't get any tax exemption and now would be getting.
Is requesting.
Right, but what we've suggested here is that they would be now getting one as well
Okay.
as the other.
Okay,
two
that's
new
what I wanted,
applications.
I just wanted to make sure that that was
Yeah,
what
and so
was on the
we're going
table.
with the premise that all the applications we receive, with the exception of the one that's currently ineligible, would be eligible for some level of it, and that's the
Perfect.
scenarios that are coming back to council.
Okay,
That's what
I
I
think,
understood.
I think Jeremy's got a bit of emotion reflecting your comments.
Good for you, Jeremy.
Maybe.
I was prompting him a minute ago.
It's worth a go.
Actually got two suggested
We just
possible
want one.
motions.
We just-
One is first that council received the 2016 permissive tax exemption staff report dated September 25th, 2015, just so that it's received. And the second one would be that staff provide a report to council with options for determining 2016 permissive tax exemptions. It's my first draft.
I like the first one.
You didn't get any applause?
First one being that the report be received.
Simply that the report be received, yeah.
No council in there.
I didn't write that.
And then the second one.
Read the second one again, would you, Jeremy?
That staff provide a report to council with options for determining 2016 permissive tax exemptions.
Based, I think you need to say, based on,
Quality.
based on to provide scenarios which would include granting permissive tax exemptions to all applications received
That are eligible.
You
that
can
are
use-
eligible.
Use the word scenarios instead of options, that's what.
Do you want to say that again, or is that,
Oh, I'm sorry, I can, that,
I'm not sure I get that right.
To provide scenarios providing
provide,
permissive tax exemption to all applications that are,
have been received and are eligible.
Submissions.
Yeah, it could be, yep. CIO, was just being suggested, well, let's deal with this first, okay? Deal with the motion.
Renee's gone.
Just wait for her to come back. Yep,
So you have
Yep.
that motion?
go ahead, yeah.
I hope so. That staff provide a report to council with scenarios providing permissive tax exemptions to all submissions that are eligible.
Yeah, just all applications that have been received and eligible for a PTE, it's fine.
applications instead of submissions.
Applications.
Yeah, the-
And it's just scenarios that are coming to council, so, I mean, there's a lot of discussion at that point,
So
so that's
those are
fine.
both motions are just
Yeah.
gonna go through to me.
You can do them as one,
Okay, can we?
just that you received the report and that you've
Okay.
directed us.
As read.
As read, right? Okay,
That's
motion
fine,
to
and you can clean it up, can't you?
move, seconder, Counselor Barkwell. All in favor? Thank you, none opposed, motion's carried. So, being suggested we set another meeting date. So,
So you should probably make sure that, work with Lori on, making sure that the finance staff is available.
Renee is away the remainder, well, the end of this week and all of next week. So, now we're into the week of the long weekend. We have a water committee meeting on the night of the 14th.
Council meeting
Council
on the
the
Tuesday.
13th, water committee the 14th.
Leaves the 15th. Wing night.
I would recommend probably the 19th, which is the alternate Monday night to council.
Does that leave enough time then for passing for second, third reading and stuff?
Because we just have to have a couple of special meetings in there. I mean, can't do it that night because we need to prepare a bylaw. So if you, I mean, the 15th would be preferable, but if council's okay with those meetings that week, then,
The 19th.
then we can,
Oh, the election, yes, election.
the 15th.
The
19th.
The 19th, yeah.
So let's do the 15th.
We can have
That
a
works.
party after.
We go to wings and then to the council meeting.
I'm not available on the 15th. You can make the decision.
Or you can also have it depending on your schedules. It
During
doesn't
the
have to be
day?
in the nighttime unless it's your schedule.
Just, I'm not gonna be here on the 13th. I'm in Calgary.
That's a council meeting.
That's all right.
The
For
13th is a
deputy mayor.
Tuesday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's council meeting.
Yeah. Well, acting was gonna have to do the job.
That Aaron?
That's a huge meeting.
Well, I've got
I know
a
it's not
medical
me.
appointment, I can't do anything about it.
Yours,
I can really do-
September and
you traded me.
Is there a reason we can't have it the 19th?
Well,
I mean, it's election,
it's
but
election and just timing wise, but I mean, the 19th seems like a good one if,
It's on the 20th.
Take it to the Tuesday night, the 20th.
it's just we need to be able to fit it in to get, the bylaw written. And then first, then you have to have 2 separate days for adoption.
Well,
which-
if you did it on the 20th, you've got council on the 26th, don't you?
And then you could have a special meeting on the 28th.
Mhm.
Still have to get the BC assessment.
28th is the water open house,
That would be adoption, so it'd be like a 2-minute.
2-minute meeting during the day. Okay.
So so I guess we're between the 15th or the 20th.
I think we should do it earlier than later.
Yeah, you
just in
don't
case
wanna-
something comes up.
Yeah, you don't know for sure you're gonna get resolution next time.
Yeah, right?
Might have to have another one on
Yeah.
the 20th.
Are you unavailable all day?
No, it's just the evening and morning. I'm
Does
just
it-
not
does-
available in the evening.
Do you know if you work that day?
She does, yes.
In the evening on the 15th, I do.
Oh,
But during the day though,
I don't during the day if I work in the evening.
so it's up to you.
or I could probably sneak away,
So we could do like a 3 o'clock.
except it's on TV and my boss might know, but okay.
What did they say?
He's in
If it's
Victoria.
on TV, his boss might know.
Oh.
3 o'clock?
Sure.
Yeah,
Take a late lunch.
Does that work?
yeah.
And we both could make it.
Okay, I should be finished RDUS by that time.
Oh,
Or you
it is an
sneak away.
RDUS day.
Mhm.
You sneak away early.
We probably won't be done by, we'd have to be done by
I'll-
2:30 then.
Yeah, I'll be done. I have another appointment at 1:45 that day, so I'll
Okay.
have to leave early anyway.
So back to the 20th?
No,
No,
it's,
let's-
I'll be
let's
finished
look
that
at
one.
the 15th and then I'll just get here as soon as I can.
I can make it by 3 or 3:30.
Do we want to make it 4 o'clock?
Then we got a deadline and we'll have to wrap it up.
Give you, I guess it gives you hours now,
Oh, you have to go to work though for,
huh?
My boss is sometimes willing to stay a little longer.
yeah.
3:30?
I know, 5 o'clock, 5:15 is when
Mm.
I get. So if
That
we
doesn't
had it by
really work.
3:30 or 4 o'clock, will it
Let's
take
do-
more than an hour?
Let's
I
do
can
3.
drive fast.
Let's do 3:30.
How much debate we want.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to we'll put a lot of thought into, it's good direction today. I think we could come up with some we purposely don't have recommendations today because
Yeah,
we wanted
because
council.
we had more.
But we can do some recommendations.
So you want to do 3:30?
3:30 is
Going
fine for
gone?
me.
Okay.
3:30 on the 15th, special council.
Pass a resolution to, deem that date and time as a special meeting.
Okay.
So
Moved, Counselor Boot, seconded, Counselor Carlson, all in favor? Thank you, motion's passed. Done?
Done.
Good.
question, Mr.
Yep,
Mayor?
go ahead, Counselor Peak.
Are we directing those in the gallery, which I'm very pleased people came out to listen and hear, to give any information to staff prior to these reports coming up?
Well, we have a lot of work to do, so we'll probably be in contact with the
Yeah,
groups
that's what I was
anyway.
thinking, yeah.
That'll be fine.
I understand,
Yeah.
they're here, I'm just saying this out loud.
Yeah,
We're not shy to provide.
No.
I'm sure. Okay, are we done? Have a motion to adjourn, please? Keep Counselor Trainer, Counselor Boot, all in favor? Thank you.